Welcome back to the show. Well, as you know, the SEC versus Ripple case, the SEC has decided to appeal, but we're going to figure out why and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $2.2 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is off 3.3%. Right now, 60,500 plus for Bitcoin, 2,300 plus for Ethereum, 119 billion plus market cap for Tether, USDC number 6 spot, 35 billion plus. XRP is 52 cents. Now you can imagine the last 24 hours, we've lost 11%. Oh yeah, that's the SEC protecting investors, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that something? Our tax dollars protecting us. That's what's happening. Range of price very quickly between 59 and 51 cents. Now, let's get into it because we got to set the stage for all of this. First of all, I want to play this for you because this is the good news. And I'm going to tell you, I think we're going to turn this into good news too. I certainly expected this appeal, but I want you to listen right now and don't let it get overshadowed by the fact that what Uphold has done for all of us. This is remarkable. Take a quick listen. This got me so excited when I saw the email come across, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, so I'm an investor. I have a lot of assets on this platform, and I'm thinking to myself, let's suppose we get into this next bull cycle here, and I take $2.5 million worth of profit. You're telling me I can move that profit right on my Uphold account, right over into USDC, and earn 4.9% on my gains while I continue to invest, continue to do these things, and on top of it, you're telling me that $2.5 million is FDIC insured, Simon?
That's right. That's right. And this is US dollars. It's not USDC. It's actually, you can move instantly from crypto directly into dollars on the platform. Instantaneous. It takes seconds. And you're earning 4.9% on balances over $1,000 and 2% from $1. The 2% from $1 is completely unique in the industry. Yeah. If you go to Robinhood, I think I'm correct in saying from $1, they'll offer you 50 basis points. We're offering you 4 times that amount. Yeah. And the yield is being generated from a US broker dealer that's integrated into the Uphold app. So the source of the yield is super secure and stable.
I don't know why anybody is messing with a traditional bank. I mean, I said right here, you must listen. Simon McLaughlin, the CEO of Uphold, who's amazing, by the way. You can earn 4.9% on USD, which is very secure, as you just heard him say. It's insured up to $2.5 million. Traditional banks can't even offer that. I was just in one yesterday. $250,000 FDIC insurance. They're crushing banks right now. Banks, savings account, you're lucky to get half a percent, for goodness sake. That's if you're lucky, right? They're crushing that. Uphold have become a neobank, and guess who will be leaving his traditional bank very soon, ladies and gentlemen? And watch out for a debit card coming to U.S. consumers in 25 sometime too. I think that's on the books. Now let's get into this because the SEC has put out the news that they are appealing Judge Torres's ruling, and I feel like this was in direct response to the 2 ETF applications we saw come out. It is important to remember as we move through this information, this is not as damaging as you probably are thinking. If you're thinking this is just as horrible as when the case was brought, you got it all wrong. I want you to first imagine right now that someone is found not guilty in a murder case, and then the state decides to appeal that decision. Well, that person who's been found not guilty is not guilty, and they are free as you and I to do whatever they want to do until this appeal is heard approved, ruled on, and then reversed. And if that doesn't happen, nothing changes anyway. So the reality is the SEC does not get to choose because they're appealing a case whether or not to approve an ETF or not. That isn't the way it works, and they're going to get themselves in a deeper hole if they try to do those things, and I think they know that they're not able to. However, we're still waiting for the details on what they will appeal the case on, and that's going to be very important. But I went back into the treasure trove, and I went way back, even when I looked a lot different. I was like, damn. I was like, man, this cat been eating. Man, I've really been getting it done. But, I just wasn't focusing on the health part. Now I am. So there you go. I was focusing on crypto and investing. I wasn't focused on the right things. But nevertheless, let's listen to this quick clip right here about possibly going to the Supreme Court. This has been something I have talked about for a long time, so I was absolutely not shocked about this appeal. Take a listen. It's going to be very interesting to see what that ruling says. There's no question. Obviously, we've all waited a long time, right? But I mean, I believe it to be a virtual currency, as FinCEN has said years ago. Again, right. To your point, the IRS. I think these are all crucial points to really stand on for the judge's ruling going forward. Now, out of this case, there's a lot of different areas, as you mentioned, in here to rule on. The last time you and I had talked, I explained that I thought maybe this thing goes on to the Supreme Court, but I didn't necessarily think that it was bad for Ripple. I see a positive outcome for Ripple, and the SEC being the party that's appealing somewhere along the line. What are your thoughts on that idea?
I think if the SEC loses something substantial, they will appeal. And I think the same is true of Ripple. So the appeal, we step back.
So there you have that. Now let's go to this clip where I talked to James, and this was last year. And James and I have been talking for a couple years about this idea. So if you've been following the channel, we're not exactly stunned about any of this, right? So look, I want all of this to be done and over too. And I want you to take a listen to something that really does matter here. Take a listen. Security, according to Gary Goldman Gensler. So if you're arguing over the early sales, I could see the SEC overreaching once again from that decision and saying, well, that's enough for us to say everybody's a security in the beginning, so whoever we target, we got the reason to come after you, even if it ends up being a split decision for you as it was for Ripple. Your thoughts there?
Very possible. Brad, right. you didn't need to go to law school. You figured this all out on your own. Yeah, I could see them doing that. But I'll tell you, it's so weird. They bring these cases and say, "Hey, Algo is a security," but they don't sue Algorand. In the Coinbase case, I guess Algo's in there and others. So they don't have that argument now in the exchange cases, except for, the Binance BNB token.
And we know what happened in that case. The SEC was forced to admit that they made up in the footnotes they placed in there, they made up the term crypto asset securities. Made it up. Just made it up. But let's jump back in right here.
Possible.
All right. Well, speaking of that being very possible, then that brings me to the next question. In your professional estimation of looking at what's happening here, how likely is it that we see this case, what's left of this split decision, go to the appellate court and then on to the Supreme Court? Because I don't change my mind that some element of this may continue to go to the Supreme Court.
I think it's very likely. Because it undermines the entire
innovation.
It undermines the entire enforcement by regulation by enforcement strategy of this regime at the SEC right now. Because if you can't go after, this undermines very much the case against Coinbase and Bittrex. Absolutely. And undermines a significant chunk of the Binance case. So they sort of have to appeal. Because this decision is going to be thrown in their face, and their response is going to be, well, it's on appeal. Judge Torres made a mistake, So I would rate it highly likely, and I think people need to be aware of that. That that there's a chance that things will, the tables will turn at the Second Circuit, and then the Supreme Court will get it right.
And that is a great point. So don't, prepare yourself for the appellate court to go the wrong way, and then, things go back the other way. Look, at the end of the day here, this is some stuff we need to pay attention to as well. So at the same time that the ETF spot XRP applications are filed for, the SEC drops a decision to appeal to squash that good news, right? Also, remember, the SEC has to approve the RLUSD, the real USD, to be launched. And then we find out that Gerber Grewal, the enforcement director, is leaving the SEC. And this was dropped just hours before the appeal was announced against Ripple. So then you feel like, okay, was he in opposite opinion of whether this should be done, and then left? And then, of course, this dropped. SEC's Director of Enforcement now under investigation for corruption. And this goes back to his New Jersey days, right? So, now you wonder, okay, did he have to step down because of this? Or did he step down because of not agreeing with appealing the Ripple case? Or is it both? I don't know, but that's what happened yesterday. Now, along with that was clear reaction coming from the Ripple camp. Stuart Alderati, Brad Garlinghouse, we're going to hear about it. Eleanor Terrett says here, Ripple's chief legal officer, Stuart Alderati, says Ripple is considering a cross appeal. Oh, yeah. He says this means Ripple could choose to file an appeal on Judge Torres' ruling on institutional sales or on the penalty of $125 million. Both appeals would stay wrapped up in one Second Circuit case. If Ripple does file a cross appeal, it has 14 days to do it, and the clock starts tomorrow. And I think they would be wise to do it. I'm not a lawyer, but I think there is absolutely nothing but upside to do that. Stuart Alderati says the SEC's decision to appeal is disappointing, but not surprising. This just prolongs what's already a complete embarrassment for the agency. The court already rejected the SEC's suggestion that Ripple acted recklessly, and there were no allegations of fraud, and of course, there were no victims or losses. Instead of faithfully applying the law, this agency under this chair continues to engage in litigation warfare against the industry. We are evaluating whether to file a cross appeal. Either way, the SEC's lawsuit has been irrational and misguided from the start. And we're ready to prove that yet again in the appellate court, once again taking the lead for the industry. Coincidence that the SEC's enforcement director announced his resignation about an hour before this drops. This is what I'm saying. I don't find that mutually exclusive. I think he disagreed with that action. Brad Garlinghouse's response, as you can imagine, was not good. If Gensler and the SEC were rational, they would have moved on from this case long ago. It certainly hasn't protected investors and instead has damaged the credibility and reputation of the SEC. Somehow, they still haven't gotten the message. They lost on everything that matters. Ripple, the crypto industry, and the rule of law have already prevailed. While we'll fight in court as long as we need, let's be clear, XRP's status as a non-security is the law of the land today, and that does not change even in the face of this misguided and infuriating appeal. Remember, when the SEC tried unsuccessfully to file interlocutory appeal, they made clear, listen to this, they made clear they had no intention of challenging XRP's status as a non-security. That doesn't appear to be true anymore. So we'll see what happens. In response to 24 Hours Crypto, he says here, certainly feels like there's something more behind this than what is readily apparent. The truth and the corruption always comes to light eventually. And here he says here to this, he says, you're surprised? Brad Garling says, I'm not surprised. I'm pissed. I'm pissed the SEC is spending our taxpayer money on a losing battle. I'm pissed that they are able to act without recourse or consequence. Regardless, we will prevail for Ripple, for the XRP army, and the crypto industry. And then he goes on to say here, they certainly are not rational economic actors. They are spending taxpayer money, and there is no recourse or consequence for them to continue to fight this losing fight. Now, I agree with what James Metal Lawman has said in interviews with me previously in the past. The SEC should pay the other parties' legal fees for every case that they lose, and they would start getting a lot more selective about what they could win, right? So that's where we're at this day, and we're going to keep you up to date on it. Now let's hear from the pundits, the legal pundits. Jeremy Hogan came out of retirement for this one. Initial thoughts, he says, on the SEC appeal. Big mistake by the SEC. It will appeal the programmatic sales ruling, and if it wins, it will get more money from Ripple and have protected no one. Ripple will raise its blue sky law issue, and if it wins, the SEC's ability to regulate the entire crypto space is essentially destroyed. Not a good calculation of risk by the SEC. It would make a poor stock trader. This is an appeal by right, not like when the SEC tried to appeal before. The trial judge can't reject the appeal. The SEC is very, very likely to lose, both statistically and based on fact-heavy way the judge wrote her opinion. Even if the SEC were to win on appeal, it is very, very likely just a matter of money. Nothing would change as to XRP and its use by Ripple. In a couple of weeks, we'll know what issues the SEC is appealing. Then it must file its first brief by mid-December. It will not and cannot be appealing that XRP is not a security. That is amazing to know right there. Importantly, watch for whether the SEC is appealing the injunction. A ruling from the appellate court won't happen till late 25, early 26. I posted it would take until summer of 25 a couple months ago. I was wrong about that. Sorry. He says, I refuse to believe that Attorney Gurwal announced his leaving the SEC the same day the appeal is filed is just chance, but I'm kooky like that. The only hope of this all being over soon is if there's new leadership at the SEC. If Trump becomes president again, I will humbly accept the role of director of enforcement and refocus the agency on protecting you from scams, fraud, and thieves. How about that one? And then hear from Fred Rispoli. Shout out to Freddie. For the XRP holders, here is the SEC appellate timeline. SEC brief likely due by December 2nd, 24. SEC likely to seek permissible 30-day extension, so will be due shortly after January 1st, 25. Says here, Ripple will cross-appeal. Its opening brief will be due around the same time. The opposition briefs will be due around February 2nd, 25. Ripple will likely take the extension to March 2nd, 25. Ripple reply brief will be due by the end of March 25. An oral argument will be scheduled for sometime September, October 25. And a ruling will be handed down from the Second Circuit in January of 26 at the earliest, likely March or April, though. So at the way I see this is, and then Chad Steingraber asks, and then the timeline for ending up at the Supreme Court, 1.5 to 2 years to that. So you're finished all of this at around 2028, 2029, right before 2030, when all adoption is supposed to be in full, right? Full bloom right there at that point. So that's what we're looking for right there. Look, I just want to say that, the law of the land is that XRP is not a security. And that doesn't change because the SEC decides to appeal. And I'll tell you who else knows that too. The entire financial legacy system knows it. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. We're going into the Freedom Zone. You're going to want to join us. A great way to support the channel for next to nothing, for less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. Per month. Probably half a cost a cup of coffee these days. You can support the channel, and it is greatly appreciated. Please hit the like and subscribe below if you can't. We appreciate all you can do, and we absolutely are grateful that you let us into your daily lives each and every day. We will catch all of you on the next one. All right, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. The Freedom Zone. All right.